So I am quickly approaching my 1 year anniversary of playing with exploring digital art on the iPad. In about 2 months, I will reach that milestone, but I haven't been able to find a good resource for digital painting that really has the feel of traditional painting as well as the look until last night. And I'm going to share that with you today. Hi, my name is Katrina Crouch. I am the artist and educator behind this channel, and I am passionate about teaching you the why behind the how so that you are able to take the tools that you learn here and implement them into your own artwork. Now, in case it's not obvious, this was not a planned video. My hair is still wet. My filming stuff is all behind me. I was gonna grab my camera and record this intro real quick, but it's dead because somebody forgot to plug it in last night. But I didn't want to wait on getting this content out to you. I finally found something that I'm just starting to play with, but I think could be an excellent tool for digital painting that looks like painting, like oil painting, like awesome. I think we're gonna have some fun with this. So without further ado, let's dive in to this new app I've discovered. So this app that I'm going to be exploring today is called ArtSet, ArtSet. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. They're not sponsored. They don't know who I am. I just discovered it actually on Pinterest. There was just like some random Pinterest video. So what I'm doing today, this is kind of my second time playing around with it. I have an iPad Pro, the 12.9. I do like this size because I'm able to have the reference image on my screen, which you can see here on the left. Feel free to screenshot that if you want to kind of explore. It's just some roses from my garden. But I also have plenty of room to work. So I do like the bigger size. I am finding that it's worth it for me. Normally when I'm working with digital art, I will use Procreate, but I haven't found that I really like the app for painting and like having that painterly feel. I know a lot of people who do use it for that, but I just haven't found the right rhythm. So I was excited to play around with this app. Now, full disclosure, this is my second time kind of exploring it, playing with it. The first time I literally was just making shapes and lines and just kind of messing around. And if you haven't seen my video on like how to start a new medium and how to explore, I'll have that link down below. But one of the tips is just kind of dive in and just see what happens, just mess around. So I did find that on the lower left of the actual kind of working the white space, you can see that little colored circle that adjusts the color. There's a couple different ways to do that. And then there's that oil pastel, and that's the tool, if you will, that I'm using right now to do this sketch. I have found that the different paints and layers do mix well together. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to try oil pastel instead of the paint, just to see how that would mix. But you can see that I can switch to like an eraser, or I can switch to a marker or a pencil. But what we'll be using primarily today is the oil paint. Now, full disclosure, this part right now is sped up. I am a slow drawer. And if you want help with your drawing, I'll have a video link down below. I have kind of a mini course that you can take. But I'm just kind of playing around with it. This responds really well to the Apple Pencil. There aren't any shortcut keys that I have found, so I kept like double tapping to undo something and it wouldn't undo, and so I'd either have to hit the undo button down below, which is down on the lower right hand side. Totally fine, but it was a little bit annoying sometimes. This also doesn't work with layers that I have found so far, and if you want to clear your entire canvas, you need to hit the little down arrow in the lower right hand corner. A little confusing, a little tricky to find, but that's how it works. All right, now we're switching over to the oil paints, and you can see already just by me scribbling around that the paint behaves a lot like actual paint. So it can kind of build up in different areas as you're kind of scrubbing it together. And that was my initial draw towards this app. I really liked the fact that it behaved and had that feel of something being a little bit more painterly, a little bit more textured. Now, where the set colors and how those are organized are kind of confusing. There's like two sections of reds because apparently one's a more neutral red, and I don't know, I didn't love the way things were organized. What I started doing is kind of what I would do if I was painting on actual canvas, and I started to kind of apply some kind of low lights, or basically like trying to find some of those hidden colors in there and apply those. So I knew that I wanted to use a little bit more of a cool toned highlight, and so I'm applying that where the different highlights are going to be. thinking that that would mix in later. Spoiler alert, it does not end up mixing the way that I thought that it would, but you'll see in a little bit. So I nailed on my color, and so see how the paints like mix together. This was getting me really excited. I was like, okay, if I can just figure out kind of how to control this, how to bring it all together, this could be a fabulous, fabulous app to play with. So again, kind of finding the different colors, and the color that I wanted to use was a little bit tricky and confusing if I wanted to use, like mix in certain neutral tones to kind of desaturate things. That was sometimes kind of confusing and a little difficult. And then the color that you're coming from will kind of pull with it. So as you're mixing the colors together, so here I'm just kind of trying to like add in some low lights just to, again, to figure out how this app works and how the paint mixes on here. Like how much is it like actual paint? Will it dry, or will it mix nicely? Just again, playing around with it. So I'm kind of just going in, I'm pulling with the color that I'm starting with, but see how I just found it really difficult to kind of blend in. I kept playing with this and kept playing with this. This, by the way, this video is sped up significantly. I think it's about like 50%. So sped up 50%. So it's like at 150 right now. So I did not paint this quickly. I'm still just exploring. I'm still figuring things out and trying to find out, again, how to make this work so that it is pleasing overall. But see how it kind of pulls the colors. And so I decided, okay, well, let's try this palette. See if I can just pull from here easily. They have these pre-made palettes. Maybe that will be better. And I'm pulling in these dark colors to try and get like these shadows. But it was hard to find the red that I originally started with that was had a little bit more of a blue undertone. So I had to keep going back to like the colors. And so it was just kind of a little bit tricky. Now, for the sake of respecting your time, I'm going to be jumping forward a couple times and just sharing some of the things that I figured out that work for me. Now, for me personally, I'm not the kind of artist who likes to mix on my canvas. I really like to mix on my palette, find the colors that I want. Occasionally, I'll pull some colors straight from the tube and add like a little splash, but I really found the color wheel was the answer to my prayers. I was able to get the right tone that I wanted, to adjust kind of the value a little bit more, to adjust, again, the tone, the underlying colors that are within the pigment, and able to get exactly what I was looking for. So for me, that made life a lot easier. I felt like I was able to paint a little bit more instinctively because I was able to like, okay, this section needs to be a little bit more neutral or a little darker in value, or this needs to be lighter. And I felt like I was able to find a much happier spot just by kind of tweaking that area more, rather than trying to wrestle between like mixing the colors to get the color that I wanted. Now, some artists are very good at doing that. I'm just not. It's my personality type, and if it's not yours, have fun, enjoy that. I wish that I had it, but I don't. And so I just found working with the color wheel was a lot easier. One thing that is a little tricky and is an upgrade that you can purchase, I have not purchased it yet. You can purchase to like adjust the size of your paintbrush and the opacity, which would be kind of nice. I like to do an underpainting, which is kind of what I tried to do with like the blue, where like hopefully that will be mixed in eventually, but it would be an underpainting. That didn't really work for me. And I found that the size of the brush was a little tricky to control with the Apple Pencil. So sometimes I would think I would do just like a light flick and it would be this huge smudge across the page. So you'll see that happens quite a bit to me, where like, oh, I'm trying to do these details and it's this big smudge. And this isn't, I'm not new with the Apple Pencil. I've been working with it for quite a while. So that was a little bit surprising for me and a little annoying. So one reason why I would consider doing the one-time purchase of the $9.99, so like $10 in US. So I'm considering that. If you have used this app before and you like it, let me know if you think that purchasing the upgrade was worth it. One thing that I like about the app and I think could be really useful is the fact that really whatever you're using responds to the paint. And so I did the oil pastel at the beginning for kind of my outline, and that does adjust the color of the paint. Now you could use that to your advantage. I use like a raw sienna, and I thought it would be like a good neutral color to kind of pull in. I would have gone with something a little bit darker. And so I probably would, I don't know, maybe an umber, maybe more of like a purple tone, kind of get those cooler tones in those there for the shadows. But I did find that you could kind of use that to your advantage. So if I were to do this again, I'd probably start with more of like the base colors, maybe use the oil pastels to add in those highlights instead of like how I tried to start with the highlights as an underpainting. Again, this, at least the free version, I'm not able to do an underpainting with the oils. I have to kind of work around that. Probably the biggest challenge for me was that, unlike actual painting, you're using a pencil type thing, and so it's hard to control the way that the brush would move, or you can't like pull out a flat brush and kind of use that along something that's a little tighter. It does help to add to kind of the painterly effect, but as a more detail oriented person, sometimes I would get frustrated while I was trying to get those tight corners and those tight details, which again, that's something that's more of a me thing. And I bet as I continue to practice and play around with this tool, this app, if you will, that I think that that will come a little bit easier. But again, it does kind of add to the painterly effect, which is something that is valuable. So maybe if I were to do this, instead of working kind of from the front to the back, like I just work naturally, maybe I work from the back to the front, so I'm able to get a little bit more of those sharp edges. Might be a little bit easier then. Or again, pulling out the oil pastels. I think is funny, like how I'm watching how I was working with this, and I'm like, oh, I guess I should have pulled out more oil pastels and just been able to get, maybe it would have had a little bit more control on some of those details. But regardless, I mean, this is the first time I'm using this app, and I'm playing around with it, and overall, I'm pretty happy with the end result, which is why I was excited to share it with you guys. One thing that was kind of nice, which I wouldn't necessarily be able to do in an actual oil painting, but it was able to clean up some of the edges. So again, one of the disadvantages is that you don't have the brush and you can't get like that crisp edge, but because you're battling that with more of a technology thing, you can then use it to your advantage. Then you can see right here, I'm taking the eraser, which is very thin, I might add, and I'm able to kind of clean up the edges and get the shape that I want when I was having trouble getting the fold exactly to be represented exactly the way that I wanted it to be. So that was something that was kind of nice to use on the edge, and I did end up playing around with this morning and kind of cutting in like a background color and just playing around with that. It does pick up the color of the subject as though it is still wet paint, so that was a little bit annoying, and just makes it a little bit trickier. You got to make sure that you're pushing paint towards the flower or towards the subject or whatever thing that you're trying to not have that color spread in, rather than pulling it from. So any color that you touch and pull through, that color is then mixed in with whatever is on your quote unquote brush, where anything that you're pushing towards, so if I have a new color and I'm pushing it into the blue, instead of like through it or from it, it won't be mixed in. So right here you can see I can kind of just get rid of that blue altogether because I'm just kind of doing short little strokes and kind of erasing it, if you will. Where if I had started with the blue and pulled out, it would have kind of mixed in a little bit more. So that was something that I've kind of discovered with the app and is becoming a little bit more second nature to me, where I had no idea what was going on at first. So I am kind of slowly figuring out this app, even just with this first painting. Again, I did spend about an hour just exploring this and playing around with this screen recording. I will not make you watch the whole hour, but I'm hoping that this is helpful just so I can show you, give you a little bit of a head start on some of the things that I was able to learn and to figure out. See how I'm just like pulling from that interior color, so the shadow color, onto the part, trying to get those little bit of ruffles on that petal. Sorry, I keep interrupting my own thoughts, but I wanted to show you like, oh, this is working and this is where I figured it out. And yeah, I hope that this will then help you as you are learning to kind of use this app and play around with it as well.
Now, probably the hardest part for me was creating these little leaves, which they were at the end. I really thought that they'd be the easiest part. Some of it is greens are a little bit trickier, just in general. But I found that the size of the leaves was difficult with the brush size that I had. So it was hard to like have enough space to kind of blend the colors together the way I wanted to, or to get things to look the way I wanted them to. So I really do think if I purchase the upgrade, it will probably be almost exclusively so that I can change the brush size, because I found that working any larger than this flower became difficult because of just the brush size, and there was a lot of like you're spending a ton of time filling something in, where this it was almost so small that it became difficult. So I was just a little trickier to show the size and how it was moving and stuff like that. But this is kind of what I ended up with. I am super excited to try this app again, and if you do give it a shot, please let me know. Feel free to screen grab this flower from my garden to use for your own illustration.
So that is my first experience with Artset. Like I said, I discovered it last night. So I am just now diving into it, trying to figure it out, trying to figure out all of it. Basically, everything that you just saw. If you have tried this app out and you've paid for the upgrade, it's a one-time $10 purchase. Let me know if you find it worth it down below. I don't really want to do it if it's not going to be any added benefit. I'm cheap like that. So I would really love to hear kind of what your thoughts on that. If you found this video helpful, please let me know in the comment section down below. And if you'd like kind of quicker, more casual videos like this, hopefully with some better sound proofing in the future, let me know in the comment section below. As always, thank you for every time that you watch one of my videos, you comment, or you share them with those who you think would enjoy them. And until next time, happy drawing. Maybe I should have moved that stuff. Oh well.